welcome to the Fancy Comma YouTube. Anurag Srivastava is a scientist turned writer. He has a PhD in molecular medicine and has worked on multiple biomedicine research projects. His extensive experience allows him to unwrap and demystify high science topics and convert complicated content into appealing and powerful narratives. He's currently a content creator at Elucidata. Before this, he was a freelance scientific writer. One of his articles was featured in Science Magazine's top 10 most read essays in 2020. Another article was shortlisted for the EACR Science Communication Prize 2021. Beyond scientific writing and research, he loves cooking, reading, and working on personal writing projects. He also loves to explore the world by finding stories that connect him with cities he's visiting. You had a rather complicated PhD experience. Tell us about it.
My PhD experience was a little bit challenging because I was doing a first after finishing my masters in Netherlands, I had got an opportunity to do a PhD in Israel, and there one day out of the blue, my PI comes and tells me that things are not working anymore and you are fired. That was the conversation. So that was a very shocking thing for me because I didn't see it coming. Um, Things were going pretty well. It was not even 1 year, and things were going well. And just 1 month before, my results were not coming as I expected it to be. Uh, After that, I had a very tough time navigating that phase and finding a new position. So that was the thing, and when I finally got a PhD. When when I finally got a position in Italy, so it was a research fellow position, and then that got converted into a PhD position 1 year later. So that was there. But when I was doing my research there, the project was on immunology and molecular aspects of molecular medicine and cancer. But again, things were not working out. As you know, in research, there are many projects you plan, but they don't go as per the plan. And uh, so I had to make a switch, and that was one thing. And another thing was that our lab had found something very interesting related with adiponectin, and so both the things were happening in the parallel. So my boss wanted any someone from the lab to take up the bioinformatics challenge. So I stood up. I'm like, okay, I will take it up. But the moment I was learning the bioinformatics ropes, at that moment COVID happened. So everything got bit challenging, and then somehow we did a project, and unfortunately I was working in a collaboration with another lab, and that lab main person who was guiding me, she got another job and she left that lab. So I was left without any supervision, and it was challenging because my boss was very supportive, and he was like, you can find any collaboration anywhere in the world, I will support you to go there. But during that COVID time, no one wanted an additional person in their research group. But yeah, so finally somehow I found a group in Netherlands, and I worked on that bioinformatic part of the project in detail, and then we uh, then I was able to finish it in time and everything. So that was the whole PhD saga.
That's great that you were at least able to finish your PhD because at the fifth or sixth year of my PhD, when I was like, my data, like, I had 12 subjects. I thought I could do something with 12 subjects. I could not, because, like, that's not enough, especially for MRI. So I just left my program because, and I had started on another project too, and it just didn't work out. So I was just like, well, I guess that didn't work out. I haven't been back to academic science. Like, I actually like
Yeah.
reapplied to my program like several different times, and my program was just like, no, you had your chance. Like, that is it. Where, so you said you did your first part of your PhD in Israel. Where in Israel did you do that, and what were you working on?
To go back to Israel, I have to go back to my masters because it has my master was a very interesting masters because normally you have a masters where you have subjects and then research project. My masters in Netherlands was a pure research masters. We had some subjects here and there, and you have to do two different research projects, and preferably in two different labs which are not at all associated with, like, both your projects should not be associated with anything, so that you get more experience. So first project was in Netherlands, and the second one I found a very interesting paper where they had used orthogonal ribosome for genetic code expansion, something interesting coming from Cambridge. So I was very much interested in that genetic code expansion aspect, and how we can use the stop codon to code the post-translational modified protein inside the protein which we are producing from the bacteria. So that was a pretty interesting idea for me, and that is what I took it up, and I went to Germany to a lab which was doing the same thing. And my objective was that I will go there and I will get absorbed as a PhD student, which you want to, like, you are interested in a topic, you want to do that, but it didn't happen because that lab was dissolved. The PI didn't get the position, permanent position, so he had to move to another lab. He had to start lab in another institute. So he was like, I don't know my future. How can I promise you one? I'm like, okay, I get the point. But he gave me a lot of references and list of people. So one of them was in Israel. So he was working on cancer. He was in Ben Gurion University in Beersheba, it is in the south of Israel, and he was working
I know
on
where that
cancer.
is. It's right by. Is it? It's right by where the war is happening right now. I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting. And
One
I've
of
heard of
our
Beersheba.
one of our lab technician, she used to live on the border of Gaza.
Wow.
So, yeah, yeah, yeah. So, because she became mother, and we went to her house, and she was just showing that, okay, here is Gaza and everything. So, yeah, it's the war zone. So, I went there. He was working on cancer, metabolic enzymes in cancer, with the aspect of this genetic code expansion and post-translational modification. He wanted to understand all these things, which was very much what I wanted to do. So I was able to employ this newly learned technique and do a lot of things. I went there, I started working. So first uh, target for me was to identify which enzyme I want to work with, because in glycolysis there are 10 enzymes. You cannot, like, as a PhD student, you cannot work on all the 10 enzymes. So I had to choose one of the enzymes, and that was enolase. And I found it, and I'm like, okay, we will work with it because it had a very high number of papers connecting with a lot of post-translational modification in various kind of cancers. So that was our first target. So I'm like, I will go with this enzyme, and then I started making the clones and post-translational modified proteins. So I already got all these things in bacteria. It was all done, but when it comes to the mammalian system, so it was done already in by March. I had already all the proteins were produced. It was checked with the mass spectrometry, and all the things were done. But when it comes to the uh, mammalian cell part, then my cloning started getting some problem, something like that, April or May, and something like that. And it was around July. I was writing my synopsis. I had started writing my synopsis because I had to submit a synopsis by September. And one fine day, my boss is like, I was doing agarose gel electrophoresis, and I had kept my gel for solidifying. At that moment, is like, Anurag, do you have some time? I'm like, yeah, why not? And then he like it's going to be a very difficult conversation. Like, fine. So he started with how good I am and all these diplomatic talks. The summary of that was you are fired. Next day I tried to pitch my case and everything, but nothing worked. I tried to go to the PhD office. I went there to the PhD office, and funnily enough, when I went there, before me, he had already written to them. So I was able to hear his voice from the administrator. So I'm like, there is no point. And you know the power dynamics, how it works in academia. And so yeah, so that was the end of the thing. On the same day, I met another guy who was in his final year of PhD, and he was fired. I didn't hear why he was fired, what happened to him. I just heard he was in final year and then he was fired. I was thanking my luck. I got fired in the first year. You see how your brain works. That something happened bad to me, but at a very early stage, not at a later stage. So that gave me some solace. But yeah, I started reapplying, and then I got to know that unfortunately in Israel, it's a very common nature of hiring and firing of PhD, which I was unaware before coming to Israel. So yeah, that was a painful part. But in 2019, I started thinking on it, and then I just wrote a draft of it and shared with a friend. She just helped me to improve something like storytelling and all these things. And then I'm like, what to do with this draft? Either I put it on a blog, which I don't know how many people will read. And I always read Science Working Life and Nature Career column. The first place I pasted was in Nature Career, and it was outrightly rejected because of the contentious nature. And I was like, okay, then Science will also reject it. So I sent it to Science. They liked it. I had no expectation that it will go that viral. It had like within 48 hours or something like that. I think it got published on Thursday evening, European time, and it came online Thursday evening, and Friday, yeah, Friday the magazine comes out. I think by next Tuesday or something, I got a email from them saying it's very much without them sharing it on their social media platform. The website had already crossed almost 70 or 80,000 clicks, and I got to know that it had went viral because I had so many requests from people across the globe, and that is the moment I realized that okay, this is a very common problem. Many people just came to say thanks for writing it, but there were many more who were like, I'm going through it. Can you help us? So, with that, I made a lot of friends, and you'll be surprised. Even till today, I get requests of people that they are passing through the same stage. How did I manage to come out of it? So I'm like, this is never gonna end, and like I am like, how do you got to know about me? And they're like, the first thing we did was search about this whole thing, and we found that okay, there is an article.
So that's cool that your article got published, but it's interesting to me that it initially didn't get published, which is kind of like that. The problem I had when I left my PhD program is not only did I had a master's, which that was nice because many people get they don't get anything. But the other thing was I wanted to reapply to graduate programs, but none of my thesis committee or anyone wanted to write me a letter of recommendation. So it wasn't possible to do that.
That is the whole problem. with a letter of recommendation. Again, so many power dynamics. Like, this is the reason I wanted to leave academia, because I didn't want it to be bogged down by this pressure of having a referee. Like, if you are in academy, you cannot move away from your PhD supervisor. He will always be there. Like, my boss is really chill guy. He's a, like, I would say, one of the coolest person I have met in my life, because the way he supported me when I was going to Netherlands. He helped me get the funding for that, because I wrote that thing, and so all these grants and everything, he was very supportive. And he was very pushy also. Like, when I pushed him, and so my due to the corona, I had to submit by finish my PhD by October, but due to the corona, it was extended till December. And I had written my thesis by October or November, and it was with my PI. I was kind of getting angry. He's not looking at it, but he knew what he was doing, because he told me that until unless you get a first author publication, it will be difficult to convince the committee members to get it through. And he pushed for the publication first, so I got my publication by the last week of December, and in January mid, he had some comments and everything, and then by Feb I submitted my thesis. So it went very fast. I didn't have to wait. Like, it went for the submission in 13th Feb, and my defense was on 29th March.
So, how did you get people to write you letters of recommendation? Or did you have, because I had like two people from like undergrad and then my research job, but that wasn't enough. And obviously, when you apply to your, I applied to other programs too, but they didn't, I lost that. I lost my
Uh,
science razzle
yeah,
dazzle,
yeah.
so to speak.
I had few people from my bachelor's thing, and other labs where I worked during this time, and also this guy in Germany. He was gracious enough to write me the recommendation letter. When this all firing thing happened, I the first thing I did was, and this is one thing which I suggest everyone who reach out to me, that the first thing you should do is inform your previous referees. Like, it is difficult to tell it to your parents, especially coming from India. It becomes like a badge of a failure, not a mishap, because people don't understand it. It is like, it is very difficult to explain it. I updated everyone, and I remember my master thesis supervisor in Germany. He was very supportive in that time. He shared some of the position in his friends group lab in Germany. So I went there for interviews and all these things. Okay, I didn't get selected. That's a different matter. Like, but I was getting interviews because of his name on my CV and recommendation and everything. So that kind of helped. And when it comes to the Italian PhD application, since I already worked in that lab before the application happened, so these two people became my referees. So that was not a problem at all. So my lab is run by the main guy. He's the director also of the Institute of Molecular Medicine and everything. And then there was another associate professor in our lab. So she was the one who was taking care of the lab, and he was the one who was the main person. So Francesca, Franco, and Paula, they helped me with the references and everything. So that was not a problem. But for other places where they needed recommendations, I had my previous referees. Somehow it worked, somehow it didn't. I don't know. But that is what I always suggest people, and they have said that it has worked in their favor when they have informed them, and these people are ready to give the references, because their reference system is very skewed, and it sometimes deteriorate the students' chances.
Basically, when you get kicked out of an institution, you don't really have many allies because if you did, you wouldn't have gotten kicked out. That's really important to have connections with people. So, are you still connected to anyone at Ben Gurion University? Like, did you have anyone like pulling for you, or is it just a matter of, which you said it happens in Israel? It happens in the U.S. a lot because people don't finish on time. Because the alternative is to be in your program for 10 years, which I've also seen at MIT, where my undergrad was. I would see grad students be there for 10 years. Sometimes they just not have children so they could finish their PhD because they really wanted to finish their PhD. And then the PhD wouldn't work out. So they had to sacrifice 10 years of their life for basically nothing. So what's your relationship like with your former institution? Do you have like allies there? Do you collaborate with them? Or is it just like one of those things where like I did this, it wasn't good, I figured out a different way?
I wanted to have the collaboration. I wanted to have the collaboration with them. Unfortunately, with my previous boss only, that was the biggest mistake I tried to do. But it kind of backfired. But it was my current boss who supported me throughout this. Is like, I'm not gonna listen to that person. Don't worry about it. So it went bad. Coming to the relationship I have, yeah, I do have a few people whom I know. Like one of them was we had a course on scientific writing. So the professor who took that course, she's a very good friend of mine. So I always speak with her on a regular basis. But since the war has started, I don't. She has not got the time, and the situation is very bad. So that's another matter. But I have always been in touch with her. So she has been a constant support to me, and she has always been one of my cheerleaders. So yeah, she's always there. She's yeah, her parents lives in US. So yeah, it's really good. She's the only one I think I have a contact in Israel, and there are few more people, but I don't think I communicate with them that much. But not with my lab, not with my that particular institutes where all these people were there.
When I left my graduate program, it kind of like it snowballed into being terrible because it started out it was like a series of events that like going back I wish I could have changed it because first I got stuck in a hurricane. I wasn't able to do my presentation properly, and then my our department head was like, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you present this?" And I was like, "Because I was in a hurricane, and I was honestly I in a different city, and then did my and then I did my thesis thing where you apply, is it where you defend your thesis um, to become a PhD candidate. And I passed that.
Yeah,
But then when I was telling my thesis committee, I had a meeting. I was like, guys, I can do this. I have 3 years of experience in this method of MRI analysis. Like, I had trained other people on my MRI analysis method. And like, I swear, I felt like my thesis committee just looked me straight in the face and was like, you're not qualified. And I'm like, how would you even know that? Because you didn't even give me a chance. It's easy to hate your thesis committee for stuff like that. And they all end up resigning and just said that I didn't have what it takes to do science. And I was like, what does that mean? How could you say that to me after 6 years of being in this program? Like, I had a degree from MIT, I had 3 years of research experience. I'm still so um, very angry about this because, in some ways, even though I never wanted to be a researcher, I wanted to do science policy. I wanted to get my PhD so I could do the AAAS fellowship and become a science policy professional. But I can't believe that at the point where you've been in your program for 6 years and your professors are finally telling you you don't have what it takes to do research. I don't think that really makes sense. And I guess this is an experience that's very common because it's hard to have a professor, tenured, established professor, just tell you that you don't have the skills, even though you might have the skills. That's their reason is you don't have the skills, and that's a reason to drop someone. But I really felt like I did have the skills. I wonder if anyone you've talked to has talked to any spoken to that.
yeah. Uh, what you are saying is such a common thing. Sometimes the failure of a PI is put down on the student. Like I remember, as you are saying, so I remember I spoke with many people. One of them was a guy in, I think, physics or something in Greece. He was a Marie Curie scholar, the best scholarship in Europe, okay, which pays the highest amount of money across the Europe. He was a Marie Curie scholar and he was from a very reputed institutes and everything. He did that work, 4 years he worked, and then something was not working or whatever, things were not going as per the plan. And then the PI got another opportunity in China. He went there, he like, don't worry, I will take you there, I will let you finish the PhD. And then after that, he went A1. And he was left hanging dry. And he tried to find the collaboration, he tried to find everything on his own. He funded the things, whatever saving he had, he funded everything. But after 5 or 6 years, he was at the end told, "Sorry, you are not good enough." Same happened with another girl. She was an Italian girl, marine. She was doing a marine research, and she went to do PhD in South Africa, and everything was going all fine, everything all good. And she came in touch with me. I was speaking with her on a regular basis. Her thesis, it reached to the thesis level, and at that moment they said, "Sorry, you're not good enough." I'm like, how idiotic you have to be that after 5 years, after 6 years of someone has invested that much time, and that time is never gonna come back for that particular person. That whole journey, whole anger, it is an anger. I completely agree with you. Like, I have my anger because I was never told the real reason. That's anger me.
I mean, I think if you thought about it, the real reason isn't like you don't know what how to do science because like that's a fake reason because you already got into grad school because I've thought about this a lot. But then the real reason is probably they ran out of time. They didn't have the resources, whether time, energy, or additional money to help you. The science sometimes just doesn't work out. Like my project didn't work out. I kind of knew it wasn't going to work out when I started because 12 subjects isn't a lot. Um, I helped my advisor get a grant by providing like ideas. That's really common actually to do things like this and like help out in the lab. I trained other people. Um, it's kind of sad. The system is like kind of broken in a way because it's like at the point where you've been doing something for 5 years and suddenly you're not qualified. That's mind boggling. That's definitely that can't be the real reason because how could you survive for 5 years in a way is my thinking.
It, this is mind-boggling, and this shows the power dynamics. This shows the power dynamics. Unfortunately, the students doesn't have that much of voice. And like for me, I kind of made a peace with this because mine was a very small university, not a big place, and all these things. But hearing from you, you are a graduate from a MIT, and you being told that you don't know the thing, like, that's the most laughable thing anyone can tell you. Like, a guy coming
Yeah,
from
that's what I
Oxford or
thought too.
Oxford, yeah, a guy coming from Oxford or a MIT being told, "Listen, man, you don't know the science, and but you were good till 5 6 years, but right now you are not good." How is that even possible? It shows a lot on the department, on the university, than on you. This is one thing which I have learned to tell the people, and uh, I, I would like to highlight one thing on this part, which rarely get mentioned, um, is whenever these things happen to us now, we are always looking for what should we do next, because we are so much scared and everything, all the things are there. But when we are a little bit in a better financial stage and all these things, we should definitely address the thing for mental health. because the trauma which you get of being fired, you will not believe it. Even though I wrote this article, every time the month of July will come, I will start shivering. I will feel something bad will happen. Do you get the point? Because it was around the same time. It took me time. I went to the counselor, took the counseling and all these things, but it took some time. Unfortunately, we don't address this PTSD of these event, because what happened now, when you are told, okay, for a PhD I'm talking, especially for PhD I'm told, please leave without proper explanation. Suddenly you add this as that you are a failure. I had this stigma that I am a failure for a very long time. When my first project in PhD in Italy didn't work out, I again start blaming myself. You are a failure, and that is why you're not able to perform here. Whereas the reasons were multifolds. The lab was not well suited for molecular biology. It was a pure immunology lab. I want to do molecular biology. So there are other things. When you look back, you find the real things. But unfortunately, when you are there and you have dealt a serious blow, you know how bad it is. It can break you. It can break you any moment of time. And sometimes people, uh, friends around you, crack jokes on these things. It's not cool. You don't know the trauma one goes through when there is a uh, thing called failure. When I was when I had already submitted my article and everything, and I was speaking with few people and few of my colleagues, and in Netherlands, in other part of the world, they told me you should not have submitted the article with your name, because you are killing your career now. Everyone will know that you are a very problematic person. Anything will happen, you will write something up. These were the suggestions I was given. I'm like, I'm not. I own it to it. If things will happen, I will own it to it. I am a writer. I know how to write. And this whole EACR Science Communication Prize, if you read that, it is the title is called Rising from the Dark, and it is about how during the COVID, one of my cousin in India was battling death, and I was in a severe depression due to the whole thing, because he was very close to me. And then how my co-PI, she played a role in bringing me out from that whole bad situation. So you have a good person and a bad person, and you should have that courage to call a spade. And yeah, these are toxic people. And lately, I have started uh, moving away from the people and cutting the people off if I feel they are impacting my mental health. It is important. Earlier, I didn't consider all these things, but right now, I am keeping these things as my first priority. I cannot let anyone take me for granted, and all these things are there. And you will find this funny. This is my like this was my first written article which I had submitted to any journal or any magazine or blog space that got published immediately. I was myself surprised. I used to write some blogs for my website or something, some random stuff. but sending it to a magazine and then getting it published, and that too in science. That was a long cherished dream. Okay, I don't have a paper in a research paper in science, but I do have a my name in science magazine.
That's really impressive because a lot of people, that's their goal. That's the gold standard. And
Yeah,
many of my
that's the
professors
goals.
at MIT are published in science. But it's such a, like, I wonder, like, it's back when I was in PhD school, when I was a graduate student, PhD candidate, no one called people out on this stuff. Like, there was some people were like, oh, that professor's really weird. He like says really weird stuff to his female graduate students, like avoid that guy like the plague. But it wasn't ever like, I don't know if you remember this. Um, I just wrote a book called Science X Marketing, and I was talking about Eric Lander, who's an MIT professor, and he's really
Yeah,
famous. And we really loved him when he was, because you're in bio, so you know him. He's founded the Human Genome Project, whatever. The problem was he talked about
I
like
have I
either
have
Watson or Crick.
I had the opportunity to hear Eric Lander in a conference. It was graced by all the Nobel laureate, and one thing I was mesmerized seeing Eric Lander. He was about to give his lecture. He had his all the slides printed, and he was making notes. And I was mind boggled that this man, does he need to read through his slides again? So I was really impressed, and I really liked his work.
Well, I was gonna say, actually, like for Eric Lander, probably his grad students and postdocs did his talk. He's kind of an icon because at MIT, all the professors are like icons. But then he was appointed to Joe Biden as the president of the U.S.'s science advisory, and he didn't get along with the people at the in the department. I guess I forget what department it was. It was like maybe it was
Yeah,
NIH. I don't remember. And so he
yeah,
actually left the department because he had a fallout. He had a falling out with the other people working the science policy staff in the executive, I think in the White House. I don't remember, maybe it was NIH.
yeah,
I'll have to find the article and post it for everyone. But it was
yeah.
kind of like the downfall of Eric Lander, and it turned out that, and I wonder, and it's not just Eric Lander, like Eric Lander though, like I still can't believe it that this happened to him. And I don't know like if I'm supposed to say like, oh, Eric Lander's cool. I never met him. He's definitely very smart, but I wonder like at what point, and this is what I wrote in my book, and I'm gonna link in the description box because I just finished writing it today. At what point the trade-off between like being brilliant and being a total jerk to people, like I guess like Eric Lander's really smart, but if he's rude to people, then what value
Yeah.
does his science have if he's like rude to people? There's so many brilliant scientists I've personally met, and sometimes they get like I've been lucky. I've never had like a truly weird interaction with a scientist, but there are some really weird scientists out there and that like sexual harassing people, like especially in astronomy. Like I've heard of someone in California, he sexually harassed someone and then moved to a different institution and then sexually harassed people there because he had a clean slate. So I wonder like what the trade-off will be. And if we had a trade-off where like if you're a jerk to someone, you're that doesn't matter if you're like, because in grad school they're like you don't have what it takes like to me. But then like Eric Lander had what it takes and he was a jerk to the people in the White House. So it's kind of like a thing in my mind. Like, what if we move the slider from like your science is super valuable regardless of your personality and how mean you are to people? Which I can't believe Eric Lander did that. I wish he didn't. I wonder what he has to say about that. He actually like left on purpose so that they could find someone else, and they found Francis Collins and Alondra Nelson, who's a black lady. She's a
Yeah,
sociologist. She now works at Princeton. So, but that's kind of like this whole conversation that we're having in science is like the culture of science.
yeah.
I don't think it is just enough to be brilliant, quote unquote brilliant, which is another way of saying working the
I,
system and being able to thrive in this system. I don't think that's going to cut it anymore for science. What do you think?
as you as you are discussing this thing, I remember when my article got published, many people reached out to me. Again, they didn't wanted me to write about them because I wrote another article which was published in Cancer Researcher regarding my conversation with these people. So some of the people who reached out to me, they were from the lab, That is considered the best top 20, top 50 labs in the world. Like there was a girl in from Switzerland. Let's not take the name of the institute, but someone from Switzerland, top immunologist. But the lab culture was so toxic that the professor will enter and he would like to see everyone dot at 8:30 in the lab. If someone is going for a drink or coffee, he used to get offended on that also. If a girl is having her hair open, he will have offense on that also. But that lab is considered the best lab because they publish in Nature Immunology, Science Immunology, Nature. Then there was another person from Germany who reached out to me and they told me so she left at the end she left. Then there was a postdoc who was a very good in publication, publishing the things. So he could do anything and he had full support of the PI. So you get the thing. You give me the result, I will protect you. And then there were other labs, other stories I heard that they are really good, but if you don't have the publication or if you don't give the result that they want, you get to understand what I'm saying. They want, then you are out of their league, and then you don't care about you. And as you said about Eric Lander, the most preposterous story I have read was, I think, a German researcher, female German researcher, a top researcher in the empathy science, neurosciences and empathy, mental health. That group, she was a director of one of the Max Planck Institute. It was in Science or Nature, I read it. And she was called out for being the most toxic lab. Imagine a person researching empathy and mental health turns out to be the most toxic lab. I will share that article with you. And why it became such a big news, because the Max Planck Institute took an action on her. She was removed from the directorship. Her lab size was reduced, and she was asked to work in a very certain way.
I honestly don't know how anyone's able to make it in this system, which is possibly why now that I'm out of it and I look at it, I'm like, wow, I don't really even want to make the personal sacrifices that I did when I was a scientist. Like that was a lot of personal sacrifices that I but when you look at like the corporate world, it's kind of the same because a lot of corporate people they have PTSD from their boss being weird to them or firing them for like no apparent reason. So I don't know what the solution
Yeah,
is there,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
definitely like
No,
being
no.
a freelancer now.
No, no, no. It is there, but at least in corporate world, to at least have a redressal mechanism. You can reach out to the HR. You can reach out to other people. You can ask them to relocate your project. There are so many things you can do, but in academia, in most of the institution, there is no proper guideline how to deal with these, how to deal with the problem of a PhD student. Because at the end of the day, it is like a PhD student and their mentor. The university name, everything goes out of the window, um, and nothing can save you. And as you said, yeah, I heard a lot of stories from US also about the PhD and being fired. But for me, it was amazing to notice that people from all over the world, like Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Korea, people reached out to me. For me, that was an amazing thing that I was read by so many people. I spoke with a friend of mine after the publication, like I think 8 or 9 months after that, and she's like, "Did you wrote that article?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah," because I remember one of her friends. She was doing a PhD in astrophysics or something in US, and she said that one of her friend had put a WhatsApp status of this article, and she was like, "He cannot be the same Anurag I know." You get the point. So this is like for me also. I a lot of people forwarded me these things. I have heard people saying that your article has provided us the support. I never thought it will be like that comforting for people.
I guess it's such a common experience.
The funny part is this is such a common experience of being hired and firing in PhD, but there are very rare occurrence of people who are yet still active as a researcher and sharing their experience. Why I was told, because I was still a second year PhD student in another institute. So that is the reason I was asked that don't share it, or if you want to share it, be it anonymous. I'm like, if I'm anonymous, then what is the point? If someone reads that article and want to reach out to the author, where they will go? That is the point. And people reaching out to me even after 4 years of this article publication shows that it still resonates with a lot of people. So that is one thing which I understood. I strongly feel that the PhD student, they should be more vocal about their experiences and coming out openly. The fear has to go away one day, so we are heard.
I really enjoyed this discussion, and I'll definitely link to the article so everyone can check it out because I think we are moving towards introspecting on the culture of science and the social aspect of science because it's actually done by people, even though scientists don't sometimes consider themselves people, if you ask me, because they just work all the time and they're like single-mindedly, they just want to get the data, they want to publish, be productive at like literally at the cost of anything. And I think that's not necessary. It's not possible for many people, for a lot of people, like a lot of women. I think it's possible for a very, very rare select few right now. And I want to say I'm optimistic it's getting better because like your article and just talking about it and all the people that have been kind of like kicked out of the system. And when I first left graduate school, I didn't know anyone that had ever left graduate school, especially someone like me that had already gone to MIT. It's really hard getting kicked out of something after you've graduated from MIT because you have this idea where you're like, I'm really smart. Like, I already graduated from MIT. I had the rare experience of graduating from MIT and then the common experience of getting kicked out of something. So I'm really grateful for your time today. And I hope everyone enjoys this discussion and really introspects on these issues.
Thanks for having me and sharing your experience also, because it is important we start speaking about it, that this is a common thing, and if something happens to anyone, remember this: it is not about you. And sometimes it is not also about the PI also. Sometimes the situation are not correct, so it's happen. It's part and parcel of the journey.
This was a
Again,
great
thanks.
discussion.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.